Hello and welcome to the ProLingua Global podcast. My name is Gabriella Ferenzi and I run a language training company called ProLingua Global. And I run this podcast to talk to business people who have had their fair share of intercultural experiences either in the corporate sector or when working for a small or medium-sized business or as an entrepreneur or solopreneur. In these interviews, you will see them sharing their insights as to how understanding the language and culture of their partners or colleagues or clients has benefited them, their business relationships and their company. You are now listening to Season 2, Episode 2, where I'm speaking with Lesley McMillan, Legal Secretary at DAC Beachcroft, an international law firm. Now, Lesley doesn't learn German for work. Her motivation is very personal and she has been learning German for 10 years or so. So we talked about why she learns German and why she continues to do so, despite having achieved a degree of fluency and spontaneity. So she recalls in this conversation what strategies have worked for her to reach the level of fluency that she's at now, and also what sort of challenges she still faces on her language learning journey. It's a super inspiring talk. You're in for a treat, and I hope you will enjoy my interview with Lesley McMillan as much as I enjoyed it. Lesley, thank you very much for accepting my invitation to be interviewed on the ProLingua Global podcast.
My pleasure.
And well, first of all, to explain to the listeners who you are and what you do, what would you say about yourself? What it is that you do for a living?
I'm a legal secretary for DAC Beachcroft, an international law firm in the city, and I've been learning German with you for about 10 years, I think.
Been a while, I know.
Yeah.
But then why did you feel the need, well, not necessarily the need, perhaps the want to learn German?
So after uni, I went to Austria for a year and worked as an au pair, and that was my first exposure to German. So I learned a little bit while I was there, and then I wanted to continue, but I couldn't find a course that was at the right level. They were either too advanced or far too basic, and so after a few years I found you, and so I just continued from there ever since. And I kind of think of it as a hobby as opposed to anything else. I'm not interested in having formal qualifications.
Clearly, but then at the same time, yes, it is a hobby, but it takes time.
Yeah.
And you have to make time for it. So, I mean, you could do so many other things, and you do lots of other things, but then, how come?
I know, and sometimes I think, is it time to stop now? But I find myself not stopping, and I don't know, it's just interesting. Sometimes, I guess I'm learning about subjects that I probably wouldn't dip my toe into if I wasn't learning another language. I'm not learning like purely grammar and all that, the theoretical side of a language, because I think I'd find that quite boring, and I'm not very good at remembering grammar, as you know. But learning other aspects, other topics, I think that's what's interesting to me.
And when you say other aspects and other topics, then do you mean about the language or about German or about like anything and everything?
Well, yeah, anything and everything. So in learning about, whatever our given topic is for the week or the month, say fashion or the royal family, whether it's the European royal family or the British royal family, history of Germany, it's all learning about different things, but using the language to learn it. And I think that's what works with me. So it's kind of like forgetting that you're learning a language as such. I guess the hook is, this is a nice, interesting topic. Let's learn about this. And then, obviously then you're learning vocabulary to go with that, and then you might throw in a bit of grammatical structure or whatever.
So learning the language is almost like a byproduct, like a side effect of the whole story.
Exactly.
But at the same time, and that's what I enjoy myself as well, like because otherwise, if I always say that if I'm bored, then the clients are going to be bored. So I want to learn something as well. I want to discover something, and whether it is in German or in English, clearly we are just talking and we are learning about the world.
Yeah, exactly. And some things, it might sound dry until you get into it, like the etymology of something. When we were doing about the roots of the German language, I thought, this isn't going to be all that interesting. But, it's surprising what you pull out of a subject. And you think, okay, I didn't know that, okay.
Yeah. Did you learn any foreign languages at school, or is there any other?
I did French, but at my school, everyone had to learn French, but you could only go on and learn Spanish or German in your GCSEs if you were good at French, which to me I don't understand the logic behind that. Yeah. I didn't get on with French very well. So yeah, I only got GCSE French, and I can remember a few words, and that's it. I don't really use it. Well, I don't use it. But
yeah, and then German came basically because of this opera experience back in the day.
Yeah, definitely. And the family, the mother could speak good English. She'd worked as an au pair in England as well. She was a secondary school teacher, a junior secondary school teacher. The father was a lawyer, and he could speak English, but he told me on the first day that he was only going to speak to me in German. And I said, well, in that case, we're not really going to have much to say to each other. But we found a happy medium. And for a while, he did only speak to me in German. And if the mum wrote me little notes, she would write them in German. There was always a dual language dictionary in the kitchen. It spent most of our time in the kitchen. But I only ever spoke German to the children. And, it was interesting experience.
Of course. And do you have any, what aspect of language learning do you find the most challenging at the moment?
I hate writing in German because then you have to use all the grammar. You can get away with not really following the rules in speech, but in written, in composition, you need to set things out properly and have your word structure, sentence structure, and I find that hard because I mix my tenses and my verb endings and my prepositions all over the show, and I'm not great at that.
Right, so writing is probably one of the most challenging things, and it's really interesting that you say that, because what I find is that for certain students writing is really difficult, for others speaking, and the two are on the complete opposite spectrum, end of the spectrum, because when it comes to writing, your advantage could be that you have time to think it through, whereas when you speak, it's on the spot. Yeah. And yet, you find that easier than writing. Giving yourself time and...
But I think it's easier for people to understand. If you're not fluent, I think it's easier for them to get the gist of what you're saying. They can, they might have to unscramble it in their heads, and I can see sometimes when I'm making a complete hash of it, I can see you working out and putting it in the right order, and I think, I'm getting that all wrong. But I think it's harder with the written text, because you have to, and especially with German, you need to get to the end of the sentence to find out what the whole thing's about, and
that's true.
If you haven't got it right in the first place, it can be a bit tortuous, I think.
Yeah, that's right, I guess. Yeah. What sort of approach do you think works for you when it comes to learning or memorizing new, words, phrases? So how do you learn new stuff?
I try to relate it back to English. So if there's a word, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but if there's a word and it's a little bit similar to its English meaning, I'll be like, oh right, oh yeah, so that's a bit like so and so, and then sometimes we'll be like, oh yeah, maybe that, you know, the word stems from that. Maybe I try and find something so that I can easily remember it. But then there are some words that I really like for some reason I really like the word allerdings, but quite often I have to look it up because I can't remember what it means, but I just like how it rolls off the tongue. It's weird.
Allerdings. Wow.
But yeah, I think I find it easier to remember things visually. So if I watch a video, I think I remember it quite well, and if I hear a text, I think I remember it quite well. So I guess it must be something to do with the words that I can latch on to if I hear it better than if I read it, I guess.
Interesting. And so you do have a favourite German word then? Would it be allerdings?
Allerdings, yeah, I quite like allerdings. I don't know why, I just like the sound of it.
It just sounds nice, yeah. Wow. Now listen, let's talk about the practical side of it. I mean, yes, you do learn for fun because you enjoy it, and because you learn through the language, you learn about a lot of stuff about the world, whatever. But then when it comes to the practical use of German, what can we say about that? It's not on a daily basis for you.
No, it's not, because I don't use it for work.
Exactly.
You know, the most I'll ever use it at work is I'll see the odd word like Versicherung, maybe, being an insurance law firm.
Yeah.
But it's useful for holidays, so I feel that I can pretty much hold my own when we go on holiday, and we do go to Austria or Switzerland or Germany most years for a language weekend.
Yeah.
And also, it's interesting watching films. If they go into German or whatever, sometimes there's no subtitles, and then I like to see, can I understand this? And then I'm quite pleased if I can, and take pleasure in translating for everybody. So yeah, it's useful.
Yeah, like so on your trips to Germany and Austria, what was it like to use the language, and what were the people like? How did they react when
I find it
you?
A little bit daunting at first, so it takes me a day or so to warm up, to sort of feel brave enough. My partner, it's usually his job to book all the hotel rooms and things, so I'd let him check in English and all the rest of it, and then I'll tend to do the ordering at restaurants and asking if I need to reserve tables, maybe asking for directions, speaking to the hotel staff if we need things. But it takes me, I need to kind of be there for a little while before I sort of feel comfortable to do it, and then sometimes I'll ask the questions and whatnot, and I'll think to myself afterwards, oh no, that was wrong, I should have said this or whatever, but they know what I'm trying to say, so you know, it's fine, we sort it out. And if I tell them in German that I'm going to try in German, they're quite happy to let me have a go, and you know, I think people appreciate it if you try to speak their language, and if you make a hash of it, it's not the end of the world.
Still, they feel somehow, I don't know, touched, or
you're making that effort to have a go, and especially if you say I'll try it in this language, they're like, okay, and they'll let you know if you're getting it wrong, and it's quite nice if they say, yeah, okay, well done. You think,
wow, yeah. Now, what would you say, like in general, how do you find the German language itself? What is it like?
I find it quite long-winded, and sometimes I can see the logic behind why the things are the way they are. Other times I see no reason for it whatsoever, and obviously always comparing it back to English, and everyone thinks their own language is perfectly easy and straightforward, and why can't everyone's language be as simple and straightforward? And you know, but of course to somebody else English can be very difficult for a whole host of reasons that we just don't appreciate because it's our mother tongue. I find the combined words difficult. I'm getting better at spotting where one word starts, another word ends. I'm getting better at that. But I sometimes find it a bit ridiculous that a word can be, like 3 words, 4 words long, and it's just impossibly long. And one of my bosses who was in Germany last week, he showed me something and he said, look at that can't be a real word. That's a made up word. I was like, no, that is a real word.
Actually, that's all too real, I'm afraid. Yes. Now, what would you say? What's your German like now? It's been 10 years.
Yeah, and everyone thinks I should be fluent by now, and I'm nowhere near fluent, but...
I'm not sure I agree.
I know, I think I'm probably better than I give myself credit for, but I wouldn't say I'm fluent by any stretch of the imagination. I'm really not very good at remembering grammar and structure and learning the der, die, das, which goes with which.
Exactly.
And so if I learn a new noun, I don't tend to learn the article with it, which is not very helpful. But I think that's a bad habit that I got into right from the start, so I find it hard to break away from that. So I think if I did pay more attention to the grammar and I could get that stuck in my head.
That's when you would call yourself fluent.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I agree. My take on the story is that when it comes to fluency, I think you are fluent if you can have a conversation without losing eye contact, without losing the connection to the other person. And let's be honest, and when you can just pull it through, and whenever you are stuck because you have the word is just not coming, then you can kind of get around it, you can make up for it, you can find an alternative way to express yourself. So as long as that's in place, I would say you are fluent. And now we are talking about Brexit. We are talking about lots of really complex topics like German history, the Second World War. We are talking about, ideologies. We are talking about the royal family and fashion and, biographies of famous people. I mean, these are really complex topics that we are actually discussing in German. So let's be honest, there is something about the fluency there.
No, but I think that goes back to me maybe not appreciating how far I've come along. I mean, I do obviously realise I have gone from, basically my number is to being able to have these conversations. But I think also it's easier with you, for example, because I think you pitch it at, you speak at a certain speed, and when you're out in the real world and you're getting people's dialects and they can be speaking incredibly quickly, and if you miss the beginning of it, which is what I hate if I'm in a restaurant or something and I miss the start of the question, I'm like, trying to, what did you ask me? It's hard.
It's these real life experiences, of course, where you have to be really, when you're on the spot and you're tested out really in real life. But those are really, really challenging, I know. But that's what brings you, I guess, closer to this all too real fluency that you actually, are at now. Okay. Now, what do you think was the secret to get to this stage?
A bit of perseverance and the lessons being fun. Even the bits of homework where I thought my brain hurts now and I'm not sure if I've got this. I think keeping the subject engaging means you keep coming back. And if it was all like, I'm going to set you the test, I'm going to set you more tests and blah blah blah, and you're wrong, then I would just give up.
Exactly.
So I think, if it seems like fun, then you don't even realise you're learning.
Learning is it's like a byproduct of it. Because we are so engaged in the conversation, whatever it is about. Apart from the language itself, and I don't know, German culture and history and all those sort of things, Is there anything else that you have learned in this process or discovered about yourself?
I think it has helped me to understand English grammar a bit better, because you don't really think about it when you're using it all the time. You learn it in school, and you don't, when you're having to learn about tenses in German and various aspects of that kind of thing, then you have to relate it back to English, and then you suddenly start to understand English grammatical structure a bit more, and then you're like, and you start understanding the terminology. So when I, for example, was learning about contractions and things, and I was explaining to my boyfriend, he's like, contractions, what the hell are contractions? And I'm saying, well, can't, things like that, that's a contraction, but you don't know you don't know the terminology because you learnt it when you were 10 and you forgot it. You use it, but you don't know the terms. And now you're like, oh, okay, yeah, of course, that's a contraction. So you start to learn and understand the terminology.
And perhaps then the way it could help is like reflecting on your own language.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially you using it as a legal secretary, I guess. That is quite an extensive way of using the language itself.
And also, what I've learned about myself, I've learned that I'm quite last minute. Well, I think I always knew that, because even at uni I tended to leave my essays to the very last minute. So I don't know, maybe I thrive under pressure because I have to get it done, maybe.
I can relate to that, I think.
But,
Okay, that's very nice. Well, now to wrap this up, I prepared a bit of quick fire.
Oh God.
A set of questions, and there is no right or wrong, you just choose one.
Right.
Okay. So, Earl Grey or English breakfast?
Neither.
Sarah Porter or cream tea?
Cream tea.
Tea with milk or tea with lemon?
Neither, I don't drink tea.
Sports or Olympics? Now, Team GB or Team Germany?
Oh, Team GB.
As long as Team GB is still in.
Yeah.
Roast pork or fillet steak?
Fillet steak.
Rare, medium or medium well?
Medium.
Well done.
Medium.
Bratwurst or English sausage?
Bratwurst.
Straight to the point or diplomacy?
Diplomacy.
Bang on time or 5 minutes early?
I'd rather be 5 minutes early.
Beer or wine?
Wine.
I'd rather. Okay, well, that was it, Lesley. Thank you very much for your time, and wishing you best of luck with your language learning journey.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much for tuning into this episode. And if you would like to get in touch with Lesley, you will find her contact details in the podcast notes. And finally, a couple of words about the sponsor of this podcast, ProLingua Global. We are a London-based boutique language training company, and we developed a unique 5-step language coaching program that is all about making the language learning process speedy, easy, but also enjoyable and highly effective. And therefore, we feel that it really meets the needs of busy executives and business people. It's now available in numerous languages. And what we realize is with the help of these programs, clients start to communicate more effectively and more productively with foreign colleagues and partners. They feel more confident when speaking the target language, and they are able to follow conversations and talk freely in important situations. Plus, they also learn to understand cultural nuances and implications. Natural conversations are at the core of the language coaching process, which makes the whole experience very relaxed, authentic, and lifelike. And that's why the ProLingua Global language coaching suits really well for busy business people. Our typical clients work in the financial services industry. Our overall mission is to help strengthen international business and trade relationships and to directly contribute to British businesses becoming more successful in the short and long run. You can find out more on www.prolingua.global as well as on social media, and you will find all the direct links below in the podcast notes. My name is Gabriella Ferenzi, and you can find me personally on Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn, and on my personal website. Thank you very much for listening.